everybody. Welcome to Joyful Stories again. I'm glad to have you back. And I am Louise Pistol, and I am honored today to have Maggie Holbeck with me. She and I both love the word joy, and our lives have revolved around living joyful lives. So, Maggie, tell us, first of all, a little bit about who you are and tell us what joy means to you personally.
Sure, Louise. Yeah, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here because I love talking about joy and sharing the message of joy for everyone. So, I live in Canada. I'm in Ontario, and I actually have a place on the shores of Lake Superior. And that brings me a lot of joy because it's such a beautiful lake with amazing scenery and just, it's something that if you've ever seen Lake Superior, you'll understand it's the nature of it. And so I really enjoy that. And my background is, Louise, that I've done many things. I'm very much a passionate person who loves life. And I've dabbled in many things. So along the way, I became a life coach probably about 15 years ago with the Life Purpose Institute I trained. And that was really a shift in everything for me because what it did is it allowed me to bring all of my passions and all of the things that I was interested in sort of under an umbrella that I could use for myself and I could also help other people with. So that was sort of the turning point in getting to that place where I started to know who I really was, what was important to me. And that's where joy surfaced because in coaching, you meet a lot of people and coaching's different than counseling. Counseling's more, let's look back at the past, see where we've come from, how we can correct it, where coaching's future focused. And I love that. It's where do we want to go? What's stopping us from getting there? And I knew for me that looking at the past, I did go through my own struggles in life. I had very low self-esteem at one point. I'm no different than anyone else. I've had hardships. I've had lots of experiences, but I knew that I wanted to choose a life that was joyous because it felt better. So that is how I, sort of transitioned to that new place in my life.
Well, that is an amazing story. And for me, I actually was kind of battling my own long hour, stressful career and all that when I heard a minister talk one Sunday morning about the verse, be joyful always. And
Mm,
that resonated with me and sent me on the path to study joy and research it and eventually write my book on that. So, and that was probably 12 or 13 years ago. So,
wow.
not long after you had
Mhm.
your realization is when I had also had a realization that life can be joyful, but we have to choose that life.
Yes. Choose is one of my favorite words. Choose. You choose your way. You choose your way to feeling better. You choose your way to joy. You choose your way every single day. So that's a word if for our listeners to make a note of. Choose is a very powerful word.
Yes, it is. I'm glad you said that. But now you have had some recent battles in your life and you have maintained your sense of joy and your positive attitude. Talk to us about what you've got going on and how you have been able to still be that upbeat person.
Sure. So in March of last year, so in 2021, which is actually March 6th, so just recently it was my year anniversary, my intuition told me to go to the emergency department at my local hospital. And it wasn't that I was in a lot of pain, it was just really, it was my intuition. And that led to finding out that I had colon cancer. And then that led, because I didn't understand about stages or, metastasizing or metastasis or all these things to do with cancer. Even though I've been in the wellness industry, and I should mention that for 30 years now, I am a holistic nutritionist and I've studied wellness because I just love to learn too. So I've been studying for 30 years. So I was familiar with cancer. I was familiar with protocols to some degree, but I didn't really, it wasn't sort of my rabbit hole that I had gone down. And this diagnosis, I call it, uh, sort of brought me right in there to getting into the research. So when I was diagnosed in March, it was shocking. It was terrifying. And I will tell you that one of the things that for me was interesting was that I remember being frozen. I remember my husband and I sitting there around the table, phoning a friend to say, this is what's going on. Maggie just found out this, and I remember looking at my husband Don, and his face was just like a statue. And we were both sitting there like just frozen. And that's the word I use, because if someone's going through something or they're finding out they have a chronic illness or a diagnosis, know that that's probably normal. It's and like we talk, Louise, about choosing. At that point, it was just processing for me. I wasn't at the point of choosing where I was going next, or I was just overwhelmed. So that happened, and then I started to dig deep into my research. So I probably spent the first 3 months just getting in cancer groups on Facebook, researching, phoning anybody I knew that might be able to help, and I dug deep. And then I started to process more, and I was very actually um, quiet about my diagnosis at the beginning, because I was just learning and I was scared, and I had a lot of mixed feelings about talking about it. I didn't want to get a lot of people involved because I had to come to the place where I chose my own decisions. I had to get the information, I had to make an informed choice, and then I could make my decisions. And I encourage everyone to do that. First of all, there's always time to take a moment and do what you need to do to process, to learn. Try not to panic right away. But once you move through that, life's about walking through things. And once you move through that, then you can start using what you've learned and make choices. So that ultimately led me to make the choices that I made for my own treatment. And then I was able to segue that into, I've decided I want quality of life, and I want to have as much joy as I can. I never want to waste a day or a minute. So it became even more profound for me, not less. It was like joy is even more important. And one of the things I'll share, and it might come up again later, but people talk about worrying about dying. So I'm stage 4. They call me incurable, and I say that's a diagnosis. I'm not accepting it. It's someone's opinion. So I don't like to, but I use the word cancer because I want to be able to relate to people and for them to be able to find me so I can share my message. And they're searching for cancer and they're searching for the word hope. So I do use the word. I do have a cancer diagnosis, but that the part about dying is, people say, well, you're afraid of dying. Doesn't that take away your joy in your day? And I don't worry about dying because I decided right from when I got through that processing, and I was a little more clear headed, that people are dying every day. None of us has a guarantee. So since I've been diagnosed, I've seen many people die. I've had a friend die in a boating accident. I know people that have had heart attacks unexpectedly. People are, what we've gone through in the last 2 years with the pandemic. So anybody could die. So why would I spend my days putting that in my head, taking away my joy, when it might not happen, or it might, but same thing with other people, right? Somebody could be living with heart disease and actually have more chance of dying than I have right now. So that's how I kind of let that go. And then that opened the way up to have more joy.
Yeah, and that is interesting that you say you actually have more joy with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. But now, what I'm curious about is something you said right off the bat: is you went to the emergency room or to the doctor or the hospital, wherever it was you said you went, on your intuition. Now, how did the doctors react to that? I can see doctors saying, you're not feeling bad, you're not in a lot of pain, and you don't have all these symptoms, there's nothing we can do. So what was the doctor's response to you
Well,
reading there?
yeah, that's a great question. They didn't know that I went there on my intuition, and I did have some pain. So I knew because pain is our best friend. Pain is actually, and I've taught this for years in my lectures when I do speaking work, pain is there to prompt you. So I did have some pain. I just didn't know where it was coming from. So when I went to the emergency room, I'm in Canada and we have a great healthcare system. So that was the best move I ever made because I had been waiting for a colonoscopy, but because of the pandemic, it was all backed up and it could have been 6 months to a year until I got in. And
Oh,
I did that little fit test thing they call it in Canada where we swab your fecal matter and you send it in. And I did have blood come up. So I knew something was going on. And so the combination of that and just my knowing, so they didn't know, but I did tell them I had some pain. But because they're so great here, they right away got me diagnostics. They did, an ultrasound, CT scan. They scheduled me for an MRI. And this was another wonderful thing. The doctor there said, I've got you scheduled. This was a Saturday night. I've got you scheduled for an emergency colonoscopy on Monday morning. So 2 days later, here I am getting this emergency colonoscopy. When they went in to do the colonoscopy, they couldn't even do it because my colon was life-threateningly blocked with a mass. And then the rest is history. So that's how that started out. But my intuition is probably more easy to explain now because I realize that I've created this. And I know some people don't like to hear that, and I don't say that everybody creates where they're at. But when I connect all the dots for what I wanted in my life, all the pieces, and it'll probably come up in our conversation, this is exactly where I put myself, saw myself. And I don't mean the cancer diagnosis, I mean what's happening in my life because of it, the gifts that I'm getting, the clarity I'm getting, all of those things. So that, that all just puts it all together for me.
yeah, and that was one of the questions that someone had sent in and that you had responded that you felt like you had manifested this. And I was curious to know, what that meant. And so you're saying you really what you manifested, if I'm hearing correctly, is the the situation where you are today, the good things you have going on in your life today, the joy that you are living today is what you really manifested.
Yes, and I can actually give you more of an example. And I want people to really relate because I'm not a superhero. I'm not anything. I'm just a regular person with insecurities, with times in my life that I didn't take care of my health, even though I was, on the health path. And I think it's all a journey. So, you know, I was at a place where most people wouldn't know this, but I will tell you honestly, and the listeners, that I was not happy with who I was. Even though I was this joyous person, I wasn't there yet. I wasn't at that level. I was doing a great job on social media and blogging about that, but inside, I felt that I wasn't really taking care of my health properly. I wasn't happy with where my body was at. I had my own inner, I don't want to call them demons, but my own inner insecurities and things that I was struggling with. And when I saw my life, and because I'm a very good manifester and I visualize, I work in my workshop every single day. This is the most powerful place to make changes in your life. You start right here, whether it's first thing in the morning or wherever. But when I would work in my workshop, I saw myself enjoying my life here at my lake house, my little lake house, I call it. I saw the body that I wanted to transform to that was healthy and fit and enjoying kayaking. I saw everything. And I've shared this in another interview, but I think it's important, so I'll share it again because it's a cute story. But before my diagnosis, I remember thinking, man, you know what? I would just like to live at the lake house. But we have a house in the city, which is 20 minutes away. This kind of just happened. The opportunity came. We purchased it. We jumped on it because it's really hard to get these properties. And I thought, if I had my ideal day, Louise, it would be living at the lake, doing my blogging, cooking up new recipes that are healthy. But I said, how can I do this? I have a 15-year-old daughter. I have a husband who's amazing. And she goes to school and he's got his work in the city. Like, I can't just ditch them. I can't just move to the lake house. But that's what happened, is after all of that and it went along, we all mutually decided that the best place for me was to be here because it's tranquil, it's healing. I can be in the most joy. I have the least amount of stress. So now this is my little healing house where I just focus on healing and doing what I love, that I mentioned, all those things I love. So there's a perfect example. I saw that vision, and it was the cancer diagnosis that took me to that place. So sometimes you don't know how your life is going to manifest for you. That's why you need to be really clear on what's important to you, and you have to trust and not resist when things happen. You have to trust that things are always working for your highest good.
Yes, and I love that you call it your healing house.
Mm,
And you have posted some pictures from there, and they are very tranquil.
yes.
I'm sure it's a lovely place to be. We're talking about Healing House. Now, you also have posted some healing affirmations. Talk to us about that.
Yes, well, I've always believed in affirmations. So on my blog, I have, you know, affirmations for joy, affirmations for gratitude, kindness. But I've recently done some ones for healing with joy, because, and don't let me forget, Louise, I want to talk to you about the place I had to get to. And I'm just going to make a note because this is really important, and I want to cover it. But I had to get to this place to realize that the joy frequency is even more powerful than I probably you and I both realized when we started down the joy path. The joy frequency, and everything is frequency, right? My mouse here is a certain density. It vibrates at a certain level. I vibrate at a certain frequency, and so do you. Everybody has their own vibration because we are all energy. Everything in life is energy. So the joy frequency is very akin to love, the love frequency. And love is, will, love conquers all. Love is the ultimate frequency. Love is how we were created. So the best creations, even when you're passionate about your work, if you're loving your work, you are in joy because you're passionate. So that I started to understand that if I'm going to heal this, or at least have quality of life for the longest time, then I needed to access that frequency. That's where the magic is in that frequency. And anybody can do it in their life. I think people think they have to already be somewhere to feel that way, but you have the feeling first. You bring things into your environment that bring you joy. For example, friend gave me this. It's a little joy plate, so I have it next to me. I'll put my meds or my supplements on there and I infuse it with joy. I've been carrying these little joy dolls around for probably 15 years. I've used them in lectures. This is to remind me that you take joy with you. Maybe I take joy over to the kitchen and then we wash dishes. So have those things in your environment that bring you joy. Here's my lemon water, morning lemon water. I'm just getting to this because I take so many things, but this is sunshining. To me, this is a joy frequency. And when I drink it, I assume that it's healing my body. I expect it to. I believe it. And so those are some examples of activating the frequency of joy.
Well, I'm telling you, with all the information that you're sharing with our audience today, you are on to something. And I hope you have the opportunity to spread it far and wide, because so many people don't understand the energy. They don't understand the affirmations. They don't understand taking the joy with you, and having healing potions. I'll call your lemon water, and all those are so very important. Now, this morning, I sent my little sister a text. I have sayings all over my house, various things that people have given me that all say, in one form or another, joy. And
Mm.
she had just given me a box, and across the top of it, it said, "Seek joy always."
Oh,
Yes, it's beautiful. And and it inspired me to go around my house and count how many things I have hanging in my house that say joy.
Oh,
And yes, and so when I texted her, I said, "Your box is the number 50 thing in my
wow.
house that says joy."
That's
And
fabulous.
so, yes, those are my reminders, and they are in every room in my house. And I do think having something just like your little joy figure, having something to remind you to be joyful and to choose joy every day is helpful. And I do tell people when they're not having a good day, and everybody's not necessarily in a position to choose joy for the whole
Mhm.
day, maybe. I tell them to look for moments of joy.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah,
I want to mention, Louise, I think, when you talk about frequency and resonating and attracting things in your life, that's actually how I think you and I met because we both were on this joy frequency. We met through Facebook, wherever it was, through a group or something, but we attracted because we were both activating that same frequency. And I think that's powerful for people to realize. The more that you activate these frequencies, whether you want more abundance in your life, you want more joy, more happiness, the more that it attracts the people, the things in your surroundings, they will just appear to you. It's very magical, but to me, magic's not out there. Magic is very much a everyday thing for me. Magic and miracles. I absolutely believe in them. So I
yeah.
wanted to mention that because I think that's why we ended up connecting.
Well, you're probably right. I do know that I kind of tuned in to what you were saying because I did see the joy in your posts and things, and now I get your newsletter, and it is always jam packed with joy
Oh,
too.
great.
Yes. Well, hey, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions that
Sure.
some of your readers sent in. I'm going to read this so I get it right.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the changes you've made in your life in the way that you think about things after your diagnosis?
Well, that leads right into the thing that I didn't want to forget. One of the things that I was trying to formulate in my mind was because I can honestly tell you there are days, and today included, that I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. And I know that a lot of people can't relate to that. And they're like, how can you be saying that? That's crazy. And I don't want to diminish anyone who's going through pain or suffering with that to say, hey, just, snap out of it. It's not like that. But I know for me, it was a journey I was on. But what was that missing link? Like, what propelled me to be happy now? So my husband and I are very close, and we were talking on a Saturday morning for a couple of weekends, and we're trying to formulate this, and we said, you had to get rid of the body. And that made sense, but I couldn't really formulate what I meant until I watched a friend sent me a video. And she very much had a spiritual experience where she realized that in order for her to transform to the next level, she had to lose her attachment to the body. And that's what happened for me. I got diagnosed. I decided on my treatments. And if anybody, we want to talk about that, what I chose, I'm very open about it. But what happened there was that then I was realized that I wasn't my body. My body, and here's another thing that I'm realizing. One of the reasons that I'm doing really well, I've had a resurge, like I've just rebounded. I have had rough times. I've had days I couldn't get out of bed. Here, look at me. There was times I couldn't sit here on this couch, and I'm doing it now. But one of the things that really helped was I'm creating a new identity of who I am. So not only is this little house like a whole new, I'm like in a new home, but I go to my new drugstore, which is, because this is in a different area of the city. And so my drugstore is new, the grocery store is new, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. It makes it easier when you change your identity. And I remember going to somebody I admire very much. His name is J.R. Ridinger. He did a talk, and he said, like, let's say you're a smoker. You have to change your identity. You have to see yourself as a non-smoker. Get the new identity instead of battling with the I'm a smoker question. It's like you have to create a new identity. So I think that happened for me. So then when I created this new me that I've always wanted, now everything's shifting energetically, molecularly. I'm transforming to a new place and I'm dropping my body. Now it's not about my body. I'm actually getting to a very, and I call it spiritual, but I'm very connected to who I am. I'm connected and I'm clear. I know what I want. I'm having amazing divine experiences. I'm getting information downloaded to me to share with the masses, and I'm open to it because I've been dabbling at this for years. I've done automatic writing, but now it's like the channel is just absolutely open and it's nothing to do with my body. My body, I support and I care for it along this journey, but the journey is much bigger. So I've lost the attachment to the body, and that's what's helped me to do this.
That is amazing. That is an amazing story there. And the fact that you have realized all this and have accepted it. You just accepted this is what I'm gonna do. Um, I think it's amazing, and the energy level is a big part of that, and that is hard for some people to grasp, how we are energy, and I do know that.
And I want to
Okay,
mention, Louise,
go
that
ahead.
because it happens to me too. When we're in pain and suffering, like physical, emotional, mental, it is harder to access all of this. I'm going to be very honest. So, when days when I'm in pain, I speak through my pain. It's not this person that you're listening to right now. And I want to mention that because I don't want people to feel bad if they're having trouble accessing feeling better or some of the things we're talking about, because pain is a filter. And that's how I see it now. Like we are divine beings, I believe. We're we're pure love. But when you add on a filter or a something that disrupts the channel, which could be pain. I have my friend here who's in chronic pain and she has been for years. And the difference between her energy level when she's having a bad day or a good day is a millionfold. And you sometimes you can't even think straight. So just remember that if you're in that place where the pain is talking, it's okay. Another day might be better and it won't be the pain talking. But I think it's good to acknowledge that it's not the real you talking. Just like if you get short with someone or and going back to moving to this little lake house, one of my reasons also was I didn't want my family to have to witness. There were times I'm just moaning and crying in bed, and I didn't want them to watch all that. I didn't want to see the pain on their face. I wanted them to be living their lives, having joy, being my husband, being my daughter, going to school. I wanted that to carry on. So I never ever sat down and said, we're going to have a family meeting. Mom's got stage 4 cancer. Oh my God, what are we going to do? But we sort of worked around that. But one of the reasons was I really wanted to keep that separate so they weren't seeing me talking and being filtering through my pain and my suffering.
Well, that's interesting that you made that choice and that was what you wanted to choose there. Now, one of the other questions that some of your followers have asked is about the alternative treatments that you referenced just a few minutes ago. And what were some of the things that you did that you can share with the audience?
Sure. The first thing I did was I did have surgery. That was I didn't want to. In fact, they were so amazing here. The healthcare, they just took care of me so well. They had scheduled me for a surgery the Friday after the Monday already, and I couldn't even make that decision. I was like, I haven't even talked to the cancer center. I don't know what's going on. Do I really have a cyst? Like, because I didn't have pain blockage or anything, and I canceled it because I just could not make that decision. Eventually, I had the surgery in April the next month. And once I chose and made the decision, I embraced it 100%, which I encourage people. Once you make a decision, don't second guess, don't overanalyze, don't spend all that energy and wasting time. It's full speed ahead. You've made the choice, trust that it's going to work out. People are taking care of you. So that's what I did. And then after that, I did meet with my oncologist. He explained that I was stage 4 and it had metastasized to other parts of my body. And I was already kind of knowing that I didn't want to do, chemotherapy or radiation. And when I went in there, I even said to him, because he seemed to have a hard time telling me, and I'm like, I'm okay. Just so you know, I'm not in fear. I understand the reality of what's going on. And I listened to him and I listened to what he had to offer. And I said, and he said, well, you can come back and basically you have two choices. You can take, we can do this chemotherapy and, you may extend your life by a couple of months or, manage your symptoms a little bit. And I'm thinking, manage my symptoms. I could probably create a lot of new ones too. Or you can have palliative care. And palliative care, and I think people don't understand palliative care either. It's not just about people dying. It's about maintaining quality of life and managing symptoms and pain and supporting the person, the patient, in whatever they need, whatever that is for them. And I have the best palliative care doctor in the world. And her favorite thing to say to me on any appointment we do is, how can I support you? So that sort of, I went back and I said, I'm not, doing those therapies. And I felt good about it. I actually was happy that he basically said it probably wasn't going to do a lot because it just let me go full speed ahead with what I already knew in my heart, what I wanted to do. So then I started doing on a lot of things I'd already been doing, like the lemon water. I drink celery juice. I've been working with and helping clients with supplements for 25 years now in April. So I knew a lot about that. I just had a gear to what would work for this cancer and this type of cancer. And on that note, I do want to say to the listeners that there really is no this will work. I see this as you just do your best, and what works for one might not work for another, or it might not work at all. So you can't get caught up in that, but you just do your best and you try and add in more good things. So I've added in a lot of great things, rest. Like even today, I was on what's called my sparkle mat. It's a healing mat. I do it every day. And I was a bit weak before that, Louise. So that gave me the energy. It sort of cleared me for me to do this interview. But I've gotten good at setting the priorities to know what I need to do for my self-care. And that, I think that's the biggest message is whatever it is you decide in natural therapies, because there's lots of them out there. There's lots of information. That's why I love the internet, is, just to know that you have to make priorities and you have to make choices. And you can't fit everything in a day. I've learned that too. So you do the best you can.
Do you feel like through all of this natural healing that you've taken on, do you feel like you have extended your life doing that?
Absolutely. I do believe I've outlived my diagnosis. In fact, I had messaged my doctor and about my 1 year anniversary, I wrote a blog post and she's like, this is a milestone indeed. And all of the support people are amazed because, I even get help in the house and they're like, wow, this is the stage 4 palliative person, So I did not want a date. So I never asked. I don't want to plant that in my workshop at all.
Right.
So I didn't have a date, but I'm guessing he probably would have said I had around a year or 6 months to a year. So far, so good. And I don't even worry about what my expiry date is because I live in the now. And, I've read that for years, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. We've all heard about living in the now, but now I'm truly living in the now. The only moment I have is right now here with Louise and sharing with the listeners. That's where I am right now. And that's all that matters. And, maybe you're at work. That's where you are. You're present. If you're listening to this or whatever, it doesn't matter where we are. Just be fully in that experience. And I remember years ago, a life-changing thing I heard in a course I was in. Someone just randomly mentioned it. But they said, never make where you're going more important than where you are now. Never make where you're going more important than where you are now. And that sort of got me through the first part of my life. But now I'm much more into the, I'm just present. I'm in the now. It's not about my body. It's about my soul expressing itself.
Talk to me about your sparkle mat. I had heard you mention that before, but tell us what that is and how that affects you.
Sparkle mat is one of my number one therapies. So I'm glad you asked because I do have some that, if someone said you had to pick and choose, one of them would be number one, sparkle mat. Sparkle mat is something that I happened upon kind of accidentally. I was researching amethyst biomats because these mats can be very healing. They can help with pain. There's different types of mats out there. And because I'm on social media a lot and I do help businesses as a business coach with social media, somebody reached out to me, the owner of the sparkle mats, and he asked me if I wanted to apply on the social media position. And I was like, I'd love to, but it's probably not the right timing because I sort of have a different mission right now, and it's called surviving and healing. And I said, but I'm interested, you know. So it took me a while to even order one and try it, but it was just, again, the perfect match. The sparkle mat is all about joy healing. It is loaded with amethyst, and it has, Louise, 5 therapies in it. So some people get a mat. There's one called a beamer, for example, and I think it's just pulse electromagnetic frequency. Then there's other ones that, you know, might have 1 or 2 frequency or healing therapies. This one has 5, and you know, there's red light therapy, photon therapy. So it does so much, and people find benefit. One of the big things is just to help with pain. Like a lot of people say, like their pain goes away, and even on the website, there's a Dr. Oz video that says, you know, pain can be diminished by around 90% after lying on it. And so many people are in chronic pain right now. There's, you know, fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and so it helps with that. But I find one of the biggest things is it's almost like it just de-stresses and takes all the energies off of me, so that when I get up off of it, like I did today, and walk over to the computer to be with you, I'm clear. I'm clear and I'm cleansed. And I just feel like all of this stuff has been lifted off of me. So I started working with the company and sharing the sparkle mats. And I have a Facebook group, and every single person that's bought a sparkle mat absolutely loves them. They sometimes they buy more because they're fighting over them in their houses. The pets want on the sparkle mat, and they are the best price you will ever believe. Like they're, I can't even believe they're priced so low. So I encourage people to check it out. It's just maggiesparklemats.com. You can see all the information there. Learn about them. If not for you, for a loved one, because I do believe it's one of my number one things that's helping me in multiple ways, not just one way, physically, you know, in many ways. So thank you for asking about that.
Well, I was real curious because I had seen you mention that, you know, before, but it does sound like something that almost all of us could use in one way or another for sure. Let me read another question to you
Sure.
here from someone who follows you. She says, "How do you cheer yourself up when you're having a rough day?"
Sure. I'm pretty good at cheering myself up because I try to keep my frequency high all the time. But when I'm not, or I'm in that pain filter, or maybe I'm tired, that's another one. That's a filter, right? We're exhausted physically, emotionally. I don't worry about it. It's not the time for me to try, and I just ride it out. I sleep, I rest, I say it's okay, and this too shall pass. I don't actively try to get to that place. All the other times when things are pretty good, I actively work at it because I know that every single time I raise my frequency, it's healing me. And every single time I raise my frequency, I'm attracting more good. Just like the sparkle mat was attracted to me to meet, it was meant to be. So I don't stress. And that's what I encourage to people. There's a saying, you know, what you resist persists. So if you resist something, it keeps coming to you. And if you're resisting, you know, saying, oh man, I've got to learn how to not be in this funk. Well, sometimes we just have to ride the funks out. And, you know, that's what we call walking through life. We don't, and someone shared this with me the other day and I loved it. She had lost her daughter, and she phoned, or we did a call because she was diagnosed with the same diagnosis I have, actually, and just recently. And I said, I'd love to chat with you if I could support you. And the woman said to me that, you know, I've been through a lot of grief. I lost my daughter. I've lost other people in my life. She said, but Maggie, I've learned you just keep walking. You have to keep walking. And I love that because I've always looked at like a ladder. You know, there's a scale of emotions. There's love at the top and fear at the bottom, and you kind of have to work yourself up the ladder. Or if you're angry, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad, but you just don't want to stay stuck there. You have to keep walking. But if you're in that real funk, it's not the time to try and jump up the ladder. Just do what you need to do to support yourself at that time, and then be wise and choose to activate the more into the things that the joy when you have that opportunity.
Yes, and there you go back to your word choose.
Choose,
And
choose, choose.
yes. Okay, one more question that I wanted to ask you, which was, how have your priorities changed?
Oh wow, that's a great one. Everything's changed. My prior, like I was very busy This is such a great question. I was very busy. I had multiple businesses. I'm an entrepreneur extraordinaire. I actually had a job with the government for years and I left. I took a voluntary exit probably 20, 25 years ago to be an entrepreneur. I'm very creative. I didn't understand how creative I was at the time, but now I realize I'm a creator. I'm always creating. In fact, funny story. You know how you see things and it says to help with writer's block? I'm like the opposite. I'm like, how can I shut this off? All I want to do is, I'm not blocked. I got to keep it in because I don't need to even find content. I'm like, I can't stop it from coming out of me. But I didn't understand all that creativity. So now, what's changed for me is I'm still a person who loves a million things, but I am so clear on what is important because I see everything as blocks of life. It's not a block of time to me. I used to say an hour is worth $1 million, which I believe because if I was giving up an hour of my time to be with someone or coach someone or run an errand, that really is my life I'm giving up. I got that before. But now I'm like, okay, here's my block of life that I'm going to be giving up is this morning, what do I really want to do in that block of life? I want to write my blog post or create my new healthy dessert recipe or putter in my kitchen because that's important to me. So it became very, very clear. And one of the things that really came out for me was that food was very important and creating food and having the joy of food. And I've always loved to cook, but we're all busy and we always sometimes feel guilty. Oh, like I'm wasting time here. And so I've just became where I'm actually able to set my priorities super easily and I can just leave the rest. It doesn't mean I don't want to do those things. It just means that I know exactly what I want to put into my day. And I do want to mention the food piece. A lot of people ask about food, and that might be a whole other question or another interview. But I believe we're on earth for physical sensation and, stimulation and pleasure. And food is a big pleasure. So I've learned to adapt my diet to one that supports my body, but I'm not radical and I did radical even at the beginning, I had a blocked colon. But I realized that the joy sometimes of consuming something or creating something, like some people, the diets are so rigid in the cancer world. Some people don't believe in eating fruit. I'm an advocate of fruit, and to each to their own. But I also, like my sister had a fish fry on Friday. I found some pickerel in the freezer I had, and I said, Barb, will you cook it up? And I ate the fish, and I had coleslaw, and I enjoyed every bite of it. And I think sometimes the joy factor will actually outweigh what we would assume would be the negative consequences. So to me, that's why I'm here. I'd hate to think that all of a sudden next week I'm checking out and I didn't eat some of the things I loved. I'd be like, dang, man, I just got ripped off, you know?
Sure, sure. Oh, absolutely,
So it's
absolutely.
balance. It's balance.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm going to have one last question, but before I ask you that, what else would you like to share today? Do you have anything else specifically on your mind you'd like to chat about?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Like it's just so convoluted in there. I need lifetimes to share all this information. Just that, I just want people to realize that if something like this happens, again, I want to reiterate, take a breath, take time to process it. You don't have to make decisions right away. And one of the biggest messages is that really it's ultimately your decision. One of the things I'm sad for is when I see people put the power outside of themselves all the time. My doctor said, my husband said, this person said, my accountant said, my lawyer said. For me, I mean, I hire my accountant and I consult and then I make decisions too. I think we should do this, but I take the guidance, I take the advice. That's why I hire the expert.
Right.
So I think it's the same thing in this world. I talk to many people, alternative, traditional medical, and I respect them all. And I valued all their opinions. And I did my own research and I talked to people who are going through what I went through. And then I pick and I choose what I put in for my protocol for it all. So that to me is probably one of the most important messages is your within is the most powerful. You get the answers. It's your guidance. It's there for you. And you just have to learn to trust it. But You help with the trust by getting the information and realizing that you are an active participant in your own life. It's not just
Right.
my doctor or just my family wants me to do this. And I have to say a shout out because I know one of the questions, and I'm going to really do an audio or something about this, but someone asked what's the most meaningful thing that someone did for me on the journey. And it's not just a someone, it's in everyone. Everybody has supported me in what I want. And I haven't had any resistance to, oh my gosh, you should be doing this. And fear factor, you're going to die if you don't try this. And I haven't had that. And for that, I am so grateful because I believe that the definition of love, the true definition of love, whether it's a love relationship, a friendship, a business relationship, is I want, Louise, what you want for you. That to me is the ultimate. And then our soul doesn't get thwarted because people are just supporting us. And I am the one going through this. So ultimately, it is my decision, it is my choices. So I'm saddened to see where I've seen people in groups where their marriage falls apart, their husband's leaving them because they won't take the treatment that somebody recommended. And that would be an awful place to be in. So if you have a loved one that's going through this kind of diagnosis or anything, the questions to ask them are, how may I support you? What can I do to help you with your decisions? It's not to, offer the what you think they should be doing and imposing your beliefs. You could, share information, but always ask permission.
Sure.
Do you
Sure.
mind if I send you some information? So that's a big message.
Do you see yourself? You're already a coach. Do you see yourself coaching other people who are going through cancer treatments?
No, yes and no. I that's not my passion. My passion is joy and inspiration. So I've even started I've dropped all my titles. You see, I even have more of those little letters there. Like, who cares? I'm a divine being. That's what I really am. But I just call myself an inspiration artist now. So through my
Okay.
blogs, through the interviews, I want to inspire people to become empowered, but to actually say, okay, I'm taking on clients and I'm going to help you work through because you've got stage 4 breast cancer or whatever. No, I won't be doing that. I will be doing it in my own way. And on that note, many people ask me things like, are you watching what's happening with the war? And my answer is no. I'm not that I'm not empathetic. I'm not, but I can't bring that into my space right now because that will not serve me. It will lower my frequency. It will rob me of my joy. It will torment my heart. And will I be any good to help anybody else in the world, which is my greatest mission? I want to share my messages now and after I'm gone of hope and inspiration and empowerment. But by exposing myself to things that take that away from me, and I think that's what would happen if I got into the coaching people through their cancer. I'm just doing it in a different way.
No, I understand that. That makes good sense to me. Well, okay. So my final question for you today is: do you have a favorite quote you would like to share with us?
Mm. And thank you for that because you asked the other day about that. And I ended up writing a whole blog post for International Women's Day using these great quotes. And one of them was my own quote, for example, that I really love is, a woman who loves themselves becomes one of the most powerful and influential women in the world. And it doesn't have to be women, it could be man, non, whatever. When you love yourself, you become empowered. And I love that quote. But my most favorite is also my own quote. And it's okay to like your own stuff
Sure.
because this helped me on my journey. And it's, I choose my thoughts. I mean, I control my thoughts, they don't control me. So that to me is powerful. I mean, it doesn't mean I can't have thoughts, they pop in there, but I don't let them take over. I control them, they don't control me. And if I have a problem with thoughts running on, then I need to do something to shift my frequency. Maybe it's just that I think about something else or I put some happy reading in my space or listen to a video. I have to be that person that controls that what's going in my workshop. So that's my favorite. Yeah, that's my all-time favorite.
Yes. Well, and I agree that those both are very powerful quotes.
And
And
Rumi, we're all just walking each other home. I love that because that is the truth. And I think that's really where I've landed on this journey because I want to do a shout out. I have so many people, hundreds, supporting me every single day, commenting, sending me love, helping me in my physical world. I cannot get over the support I have. So I thank everyone for that, because that is hugely, hugely helpful and powerful and just magnificent. And I appreciate it so much.
Listen, you are a lovely person, and I have enjoyed this, and I know lots of our listeners will. Tell everyone how we can connect with you.
Sure. So I'm an open book. That means you can find me anywhere. I'm the only Maggie Holbeck in the world. And I have a digital marketing company, of course. Remember, I said a lot of businesses. So I have really good search engine optimization. So all you have to do is search Maggie Holbeck and everything about me will come up. My blogs, my website, my social media platforms. And if you really want to fine tune it, you could, like, for example, a lot of people ask me about what's the big deal on celery juice. So if you search Maggie Holbeck, actually, you could just search Maggie celery and it comes up. That's how good it is. But you could search Maggie Holbeck celery and that my articles will come up. Or you could search, maybe you're having a struggle and you want more kindness in your world. Search Maggie Holbeck kindness and all my articles in the kindness category will come up. So they can follow me at my blogs. I have three of them: maggieholbeckblog.com, maggiesvitaminsblog.com, which is for vitamins of the body, mind, and spirit. It's not just about supplements, it's about all of that supports us. And then I have one called Maggie's Business Coaching blog. So those are the blogs that I'm hammering away at on a regular basis. And I'm open to connecting on social media. I have several Facebook pages. Just reach out, and because that's what I want. I want to inspire the world in any way I can. And as I said, even after I'm gone, I want that information out there. It's very important to me.
Well, you are quite inspirational, and that was one of the things that drew me to you. Was I could just feel that within you, and we really appreciate you sharing so much today. You have been an open book, and you have shared a lot of information, and I know it is going to be helpful to a good number of people. So we're going to close now. Maggie, I'm going to ask you to hang around for just a minute, but we are going to close this, and it will be on my Facebook and my YouTube, and Maggie is going to post it in all of her areas so that anyone that missed it can catch it. And I'm sure there'll be numerous people who will want to catch the replay also. So let us say goodbye for now. And I
Bye, everyone.
appreciate you being here today. And much love and joy to all of you.
Yes.
Bye now.
Bye bye.